Okay, all right. We have people are on time today. So for everybody who just joined, we are gonna mute people at first. So we give the floor without disturbance to the speakers, but later you will be able to unmute yourself, just not now. But if you're not shy, you can turn on your camera so we can, you know, say hi and be in the same virtual space together. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. And we're going to start at probably in a few minutes to give time to people to still join. But congrats to you who are on time, like people who are on time. Now the game is always to know if someone has a real background or a virtual background. Okay. All right. So I am the official bouncer, and I think we have still people joining. So let's just wait another 2 minutes, and then we can start. All right. And remember, it's a happy hour. So whatever your drink is, we can cheer during the drink. Oh, mugs as well, Carla. Very nice.
It's tea time here in the UK.
You know, it's funny. I have to show you my mug. It's a mug I made when I was at ArtNet for my team. So it was the content team and the QA team, and we put like ArtNet, and everybody in the team had the same mug. So, Lindsay, I know you would appreciate.
Nice.
And I hope, yeah, some people are in the time wine, so feel free to bring that as well. All right. Darcy is joining us. Perfect. All right. I mean, do we want to start? I guess we can start, and people will join in the meantime. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for all being here for the first virtual happy hour of this series of events. We are going to host them regularly, like probably every 2 weeks, with guests from the art and tech world. And it will be leading to our online fair, CADAF Online, that we just announced for June. So if you want to stay after the talk, we will give a few more details and insights about it, and you know, you can also stay to catch up a little bit more casually after the talk. And today's talk is moderated by our amazing Giulia Archetti, who is based in Switzerland for now, at least. And yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. And a little bit of logistics. So I did mute everybody, and for now you are not going to be able to unmute yourself, so the speakers really have the floor. Q&A, you will be able to unmute yourself. In the meantime, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand or submit your questions in the chat. I will monitor it and get your voice heard. And that's it for me. And I'm happy to give the floor to Giulia. Giulia, the floor is yours.
Yes, hi, thank you. And well, welcome to everyone who's just joined. So I'm particularly excited to, and also a little bit nervous because it's the first happy hour. So it's the first one of many to come. But for me, it's exciting because even though I've worked a long time in the art industry, the digital art side and technology and art is something that I've always wanted to explore further. And so I want to introduce our guests for tonight. I still don't see them. Funny, I still see the
Oh yeah, I'll stop sharing.
So I can see,
we can all see each other.
Oh, and the audience too. Oh, that's nice. Hi, I'm Giulia. I don't know if you were seeing me before. So our guests tonight are Carla Rapoport and Carla Gannis. Carla R, for the purpose of tonight's or today for the people in New York talk, was the founder of the Lumen Prize in 2012 and the Lumen Art Projects that came about in 2018. She will tell us everything about how she embarked on this journey of supporting and promoting digital art and new media art. Before that, though, she was a financial journalist. She worked internationally in Tokyo, Hong Kong, and London. Which is why also for me it's particularly interesting to hear her story and why she decided to move away from being a journalist and join sort of the digital art realm. And then of course Carla Gannis, or Carla G, a renowned artist from Brooklyn, New York. Of course, you are a digital artist, but I think you define yourself as an interdisciplinary artist as well. And there's something that I like to quote that I really like that you wrote down about your art, which says that you produce virtual and physical works that are darkly comical in their contemplation of human, earthly, and cosmological conditions, which I love that sentence. And I also thought when I read it that it was particularly relevant for what we are experiencing now in sort of this challenging times. And a lot of people might not know that you're also a professor at NYU, and you'll tell us a little bit more about your current projects, but to mention a couple of more recent projects that some of the audience might have seen or experienced, the Midnight Moment at Times Square Art, and also the artwork called Sunrise and Sunset at the Art Court at the Whitney Museum of American Art. So last but not least, how you sort of tie in with Carla R is that in 2016 you were the winner of the Lumen Prize. So this allows me to sort of pass the baton back on to Carla R so she can tell us a little bit more about how the Lumen Prize came about and her journey.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Giulia, for that beautiful introduction to both Carlas. I'm so honored and happy to be part of the first CADAF virtual happy hour. And thank you to the wonderful CADAF team for setting this up and inviting me and the other Carla in my life, the amazing Carla Gannis, who won the Lumen Prize Founder Award, as you said, in 2016. This is a real treat. Hello from Wales. These are Welsh daffodils, so I'm sharing some Welsh spring with you. I'm going to say a few words and then Carla's going to say a few things, and then we're going to have a question and answer between us, a kind of conversation between the two Carlas, maybe three Carlas. Another Carla's going to show up, possibly. Definitely another Carla's going to show up. And then we'll open it up to questions. But as Fanny and Giulia said, if you've got questions in the meantime, please just write them down, and we'll certainly love to get to them. So as Giulia mentioned, I spent many years working as a financial journalist, and as a result, I am uniquely unqualified to be speaking to you about art. However, it's possible that my background in financial journalism meant that I wasn't daunted about the idea of shining a light on a genre of art that I felt had been unfairly neglected by the contemporary art world. Don't get me wrong, I love the contemporary art world, I'm a huge fan. But, and I also think it's fair to say that in the 8 years since I launched the prize, between 2012 and today, there's been a big, if not huge, shift towards accepting and understanding the genre. But I think then, as now, the word technology still strikes fear in the hearts of many. And if you add in the word HDMI cable, people start running for the door, curators start getting all hysterical. And the reason Lumen exists, and the reason I wanted to set up Lumen, was to break down those fears, break down those barriers, spread the love, and start a conversation between the contemporary art world and this incredible world of artists who create with technology. So fair enough, you might say, I think it's probably to take a moment, how does a nonprofit like Lumen exist in the world, even pre-COVID-19, and certainly how do we exist now? I just wanted to spend a few minutes explaining how we work. Basically, what we've done is created a network of all the artists who have been longlisted, shortlisted, or won an award since we began in 2012, and that's now a network of over 400 artists globally. One of them, I'm proud to say, is Carla Gannis. And then we link up to true believers like CADAF, and people like CADAF, venues, art institutions, partners, festivals who believe in this genre. And we provide opportunities for artists in our network. We build opportunities, commissions, exhibitions, and festival performances. And that's the way the two come together. So the networks versus plus the partnerships have created a business which even in this really difficult environment is still carrying on. So I'm heartened that the art world is slowly coming to love more and more, love this genre, and more partners all the time. I'm constantly inspired that the Lumen Prize continues to attract entries from artists worldwide who traverse the intangible spectrum of art and technology. These artists all use media and processes as varied as the historical and current day questions that they engage with. These artists are explorers and border crossers, every one of them, and I'm really proud to represent them. In the Lumen Prize call for entries for 2020, if I can get in a really quick advertisement, is open right now. We've extended the deadline to June the 12th. We've cut the price because of COVID-19 to $38. So if you create art yourself with technology, please enter. If you have friends who do it, please encourage them. We have a student prize that's free to enter. And if you've entered before and you haven't been successful, please try again. 20% of our winners have been past entrants. So jury panels change all the time. And it's good to keep trying. You're supporting a wonderful network, a nonprofit network of artists. Now, in the remaining time I have, I'd like to run through, in the remaining time I have, I'd like to run through very quickly a little gallery of the 8 artists who have won the Lumen Gold Prize since we launched in 2012. So Fanny's going to get this started for me. That's 16. Perfect. Okay. This is going to show a little bit of how the genre and Lumen have evolved. Can we have the next slide, please? Perfect. So this is Tommy Ingberg. It's a piece that was created for the 2012 award. It won gold. It really stood out. It's a photo manipulation. Tommy lives in rural Sweden and he's still doing this kind of work. I hope he's not on this call because it's fair to say that this work would not qualify to the long list now. Things have really changed. And the jury panel is looking for the latest tools, the most exciting application of the latest tools. And while this is a beautiful piece, I have it on my wall, it wouldn't carry away Lumen Gold because we're always looking for what's pushing the boundaries, what's crossing into new spaces. So let's look at number 2. Next. This is a beautiful, evocative animated moving image piece by Katharina Athanasopoulou, who's Greek, and it was a piece with a single violin in the background, all rendered on her computer, no photography, all created by herself. And it would make you cry as a story of how Greece reacted to the economic crisis. Again, it probably wouldn't make it off the long list. However, Katharina herself has evolved massively since then. If you look at her website, you'd see completely different work. So it's a talisman to me as to who is going to be participating in this genre in a wider sense as we go along. So next one. 2000, next slide. Danny, next slide. Hello. Oh, great. So in 2014, Andy Lomas created this piece with algorithms. He's a mathematician from Cambridge, and he was doing animations for Hollywood, the film Avatar. And in his spare time, he was dreaming up algorithms to create images like these. This is the story of the cell. It just knocked us all over. We're still working with Andy. I'm pleased to say this work has been acquired by the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. He had a show in the last exhibition I saw before the world shut down. His practice has gone so big that he was able to quit his day job. So we were very proud when that happened. The next. So this is when it all became interactive. This is a piece by Gibson Martelli. Augmented reality had been around for a long time, as many of you know, but the jury panel, I'm not on it, but the jury panel said that they had never seen anything that took dance, which was Ruth Gibson, and put it against this kind of a background to make it pop, so that visitors could actually scan the black and white, which is a imagery from camouflage from World War I, and then have a dancing artist on their screen. It took everyone by surprise, and Gibson Martelli's work became the beginning of Lumen Art Projects, because it became something that was commissioned for a whole city of Leeds, on posters all around Leeds, and we've worked with them many, many times in China and other places. And they've become a real pillar of the Lumen Art Network. 2016, please. So Fabio Italian, there he is with his long curly hair. He was an oil painter who wanted a VR element to his work, found a VR partner, no digital skills himself, and created a vertigo experience of his painting. This is not another world. It's literally, you put the goggles on and you are in his painting, you look down. And I have to say, I can only do it for a few seconds, but children can be in those goggles for 20 minutes, and it is an amazing experience. And again, we're pleased to say his career has really taken off since he's won. So 2017, this was the first year that a politically engaged piece won the Lumen Prize. And this is a piece by Dice Bierstecker about plastics in the sea. You raise your hand over it and the plastic comes up. It's been in China, it's been he's Dutch, and it's been shown in museums in Europe. And working with Dice has been a real education for us, because he is an engaged, politically, environmentally engaged artist. He's taught us how art can make people focus on difficult topics in a way that brings them along and helps raise consciousnesses and helps to change minds. So it's been great working with Dice. 2018. This is the first machine created piece. It's a bit cheeky to say it's machine created, because Mario Klingemann created The Butcher's Son by using generative adversarial networks, which he fed the images to and then trained the computer. But in the end of the day, a computer, he would argue, was the originator of this wonderful piece. He struck a collection, and I'm happy to say I own one of these. It's also, one of them will be going to the Victoria and Albert Museum, also been acquired by the V&A. Just an exciting piece, and again, the sort of bursting forward of how AI has come into art in such a big way. There's lots of other stories about AI that could be a whole nother kind of happy virtual hour about AI in art. Actually, any of these could, but this one in particular has created a lot of controversy. But let's move on to 2019. This is Rafiq Anadol and Melting Memories. It looks 3D, it's actually 2D, using, again, algorithms and AI techniques, and it's a life-size work that is a 3-minute image. This one is an LED screen. It's hard, it looks like you could touch it, doesn't it? Rafiq is a Turkish artist based in LA, And his practice is so busy that we had a hard time getting his money to him. He took 3 months to get us his PayPal account. That's how busy he is, which is a really indication of that he's cracked through and is in big demand by all kinds of institutions around the place. Not the name brand institutions, but he's getting there. And I think if anyone crosses over, it will be Rafiq in a big way. So that's it. Can I hand over to the other Carla in my life?
Okay, can everyone hear me? All right, all right. I'm now going to share my screen. Let me get it set up. Okay. All right, so it should be sharing now. Hello world, hello everyone here today virtually. It's great to see you or see your names. And I hope you're all doing okay. So about this first image that I'm showing, approximately 40,800 years ago, Neanderthals decided to make their marks on the walls of caves. And this one is in Castillo, Spain. And then collaged onto that, 1974, which now seems like the Stone Age, computer scientist Brian Kernighan wrote the first Hello World program. So whether to verify our own existence or to verify that our creations are operating properly, self-expression has been an impulse within us for millennia. So I'm going to share with you a few works from the past few years of my artistic practice today, and then focus on my latest body of work, Wunderkammer. All right, next slide. So some of you might be familiar with the original painting that this refers to, The Garden of Earthly Delights by Harun Misbash. This is my emojification. That word doesn't actually exist in the dictionary yet, I don't think, but it works well. And it's the emojification of Bash's painting titled The Garden of Emoji Delights is the title for mine. So beginning in late 2013, I began producing a work inspired by Bash's garden. As much as aspects of culture and civilization have changed, primarily due to the various technologies we have created to assist and augment human experience, in regards to human emotion and desire, a lot has also remained the same. On one level, borrowing from the past, particularly from our creative past, from painting, from film, and literature, allows me to illustrate this point. Okay, next. I'm getting to new media. By the way, the Garden of Emoji Delights exists as an animated work, a 4K video. There are also several vignette animations, so details of the piece that are animated. It exists as a 13x7 foot print as well. There's augmented reality and 3D prints. So I am very interested, as you'll see as I show more of my work, in exploring how I can have one theme or idea and then express it or communicate it across media platforms. Now, these pieces, chimera, are an interest of mine. Those figments of the imagination, those genetic hybrids that can often be so disturbing or mind-boggling. An extension of the chimeras, we usually think of them as animal hybrids, both in mythology and science, can be found in these 16th century Mannerist paintings by Giuseppe Arcimboldo. And he's noted for this proto-surrealistic portrait work. And so he came back onto my radar in 2017 when I began to produce these works. And so I decided to delve into portraiture, inspired by Arcimboldo. His work was about connecting the human to nature, and mine became about connecting the human to their new natures. And once again, I returned to emoji, those cute shorthand symbols for emotional expression, and exploring digital semiotics and kind of what these signs and symbols mean and how they can be repurposed in the context of art. I posit our future doesn't have to look like this. Homogeneous examples of emerging intelligences. Here are augmented reality screenshots of my Archimboldian characters. I see them all as robots or embodied AIs. Quite likely, future robots won't look like this either, but the fun of art is being able to introduce speculative ideas into the mix. So it was exciting to have my weird cast of robotic Archimboldian figures take over Times Square for Midnight Moment in 2018. So for 3 minutes at midnight every night during the month of August, these took over advertising screens. And also in that same year, I got to release one of my characters online on the Whitney's site for the Art Project Sunrise and Sunset. And so at sunrise and sunset every morning on the Whitney site, Lady Ava Interface would take over the Whitney site, and she is an embodied AI, and she would inspire people to think about their daily routines in creative ways. And now to another body of work that indicates my fascination also with identity and personal identity in the digital age. And this is entitled, this entire project, the Selfie Drawings. So over a year, beginning in 2015, I created one selfie drawing a week. And I shared them on all my social media platforms. It begs the question, is it a selfie if it's not shared? But really exploring the connections between more historic self-portraiture and selfie culture today. And then I published a book of these drawings that I created augmented reality experiences for over 52 weeks. So I released the book at the beginning, and then every week I'd add a new AR experience. So revivifying the book. What do you normally do with a book? Put it on your shelf. But this way, and I was sharing when I'd release a new augmented reality experience, I'd share it on all my social networks and on the website, and people could pick up that book again, turn to a page, hover the app over it, and something new, a kind of digital pop-up would occur. And this is also how I met Carla R. And I was thrilled to win the Lumen Prize Founders Award in 2016 for this project. Through the act of creating virtual simulations of myself in the Selfie Drawing Project, oh, let me go back, stick on that one for a second. So I was creating these virtual simulations of myself in the Selfie Drawings Project once I started the augmented reality phase of it. And so it was kind of going from the photographic and drawing realm into post-photography and into synthetic media. And from that, Carla Gannis, cross-platform avatar for recursive life action generative adversarial network, emerged. And here she is protesting the election of Donald Trump in her bedroom in early 2017. She's wearing a nasty woman t-shirt, if you can see. Okay, so now we are getting to my current project, Wonder Camera, and it's installed in Telematic Gallery in San Francisco. And it opened online due to COVID-19 on March 14th, so just about a month ago. It is still installed there, and hopefully when the world heals, it may be open to visitors again. I'm just checking in. Can everybody hear me? Am I coming through okay? Maybe some thumbs up? Okay, good. All right. So the word Wonder Camera directly translated is Wonder Chamber. It's also referred to as the name you might be familiar with, Cabinets of Curiosity. And they first appeared in the mid-1500s. They were repositories, entire rooms, not only single cabinets. And they began to spring up across Europe. And they focused on wondrous and exotic items. The Wonder Camera was the precursor to the museum, and it marked the intersection of science and superstition, as well as physical and artificial wonder. They were generally organized in categories including naturale, exotica, scientifica, and artificialia. Today, many of us keep personal wonder cameras, actually, if you think about it, on our Pinterest pages, on Instagram accounts, and on various other social media platforms. Hence the title of my show, WWW Wonder Camera. So the show begins with this print in Carla's studio, Carla Gannis. I'll call her C. for short since there's so many Carlas here today. So here in Carla's virtual studio, which is much nicer than my studio in Bushwick, by the way, you see that she's starting to work on various characters that emerge and have been emerging in my work over the past 3 years. Outside of her studio, though, you see looming the New York Times, all of these different headlines. So on one level, I'm referring to artists like Matisse, all those portraits from his studio, but also talking or referring to the looming crisis or looming crises that we all face today. And in a time of hypermediation, 24-hour news cycle, even in the studio, it's hard to, not be aware of all of the crises that we are contending with as a human species and as a planet. Now, the show progresses to a physical cabinet of curiosities. And this physical cabinet of curiosities is made up of items that I found on the internet from numerous online expeditions. So instead of the 15th century wonder camera where people were traveling the world, I was traveling online to acquire these various objects that I then painted with this patina of copper to give them this sense of historiosity. And here are some details. As you can see, my references are from high to low. Also, you'll see that each one of the cabinets is lined with these patterns. Those patterns have been generated by AI, artificial intelligence. I've been using the platform Playform. And so I've been running a series of data sets where each one of these cabinets represents a different category, and I've been training an AI on these data sets with hundreds of thousands of images based on my various categories for my wonder camera. So these aren't just abstract wallpaper patterns, they're actually my collaboration with an AI that's a little baby still learning from the images that I'm feeding to it. And here are some other close-ups. And now we get to the next level of reality. So this physical grounded reality show actually is grappling with the many states of reality that we all kind of are at least familiar with, if not participating in on a daily basis. I teach virtual reality and augmented reality, so I'm in multi-realities quite often. So this is the mixed reality space, the holodeck, if there are any Star Trek Next Generation fans here. And so it's actually, though, analog. This holodeck, and the one you see behind me, was hand painted on the wall. It's not something computer generated. So a hand painted holodeck, some wonderful assistants working with me on that, and then a carpet. So, also kind of the mundane things of daily living, right, that get converted into this holodeck. So the carpet pattern refers to Lawnmower Man, another pop culture reference. If anybody knows, that's a cult classic now. It's one of the first VR movies from the 90s. And the special effects will definitely make you laugh now. Also hanging on the wall are these trompe l'oeil prints that activate AR. And so I'll show you an example of that now. Let me play it. So as you can see, that gives you that sense of depth like Renaissance, but it's actually just something flat on the wall and I painted shadows around it. And then when you actually use the device, the screen, we see the box extrude, and there we get an AR experience of one of the avatars who is one of the central players in this body of work. And so I have, and I've already introduced you to these Archambaldian characters and also my avatar, Carla, and there's one more central character in these cast of characters. They're called the virtues and vices, because I don't think of these things as, that it's just one or the other, but we deal with virtues and vices in each of our identities today. And so one more is added is Tipu's tiger from the Victoria and Albert Museum. And he is my character called the cat meme decolonizer, because he's very popular online if you look up Tipu's tiger. And then you see the AR versions of them to the side. Now, the next level of reality is full immersion into virtual reality. It begins with this memento mori sculpture of the skull with the Oculus headset on its face or skull, but a sense of redemption as grass and nature, grass sprouts from his head. And then in the gallery, there's this little alcove, so another cabinet, and that's where people can experience the virtual simulation, the VR experience. So the VR experience begins with one-to-one virtual recreation that I created of the actual physical gallery. So you are launched into this VR world that looks identical to the world you just left. And so that's where you begin, and there my avatar C. Carla Gann greets you. From there, you begin a journey by going down a long road into a video game cabinet. Get it? Cabinets of curiosity. What are our cabinets of curiosity today? Video game cabinets for one. And it's a video game cabinet castle. So mixing metaphors. And locusts swarm around. So there are some dark, ominous undertones. Now from there we go into the actual cabinet of curiosities, consisting of thousands of 3D objects that I have downloaded from the internet. And they're organized into taxonomies or categories, including sex and tech, endangered species and biology, decolonization and global pluralism, deprecated tech, history and politics, and humor and computational humor. And so this gives you another view. And again, all of these objects are texture mapped with that same kind of patina, making them seem like artifacts with this copper patina. And then the experience continues. After you finish playing with all the curiosities, so each one of those objects is interactable. So you can pick up the objects, you can throw them, you can pick up multiple ones, you can start to reorganize your categories. So you have agency to think about these categories and the flexibility of these things and how, you know, different ideas and perceptions of things can be changed once you get the agency to collaborate or to interact. And from there, you're jettisoned either into the matrix, which is a matrix, again, with all of the different AI-generated images that have evolved from my working with this AI for almost a year now. And then the cosmos. So here is a picture of the cosmos. And I actually am going to show you a little trailer of all of this in a minute, so you get a little sense of motion too. And then finally, at the end, each one of those experiences is timed, and those are the one places where you don't have any controllers, and you are in either the cosmos or the matrix, just floating. So I give a lot of agency when you're in the cabinet, and you have these objects, you can start to kind of identify new taxonomies. But then you're switched into from the micro to the macro of the universe and of the matrix, kind of alluding to simulation theory and the hypothesis that even our own world could be a computer simulation. And finally, after that, you get jettisoned back into the gallery. It's at night now. It's a darker time, a quiet time. And there are two iterations. Carla can multiply instantiate in virtual space. And one iteration of her is levitating. This is, remember Bruce Nauman? He always failed to levitate in the studio. Well, she can levitate in the gallery. And she's wearing these goggles. You'll often see her wearing goggles, but those are her grounded reality goggles so that she can see into our reality. And then another version of Carla just sits there and rests. And then here, you should be able to see, is it playing? Yes, so this is just a trailer showing you a few parts of the VR experience. Luc Dubois composed the music for this piece. I'm not playing the music today. I was afraid we might have some tech difficulties, but you can find this video and other video from the show on the Telematic website. And I have that address a little later in the presentation. So this is
Carla, we just have a quick question regarding this exhibition. Darcy is asking if this can be accessed online with Oculus Quest headset, or how can you access it?
Yes, currently it's an HTC Vive platform. And so currently it's installed in the physical gallery in San Francisco. I'm working right now on a longer documentation video that will be released in the next week. And I'm working in VR chat currently. I don't know if anyone knows about social VR, but I was thinking, because for instance, right now I teach at NYU, and all of our facilities are closed. And so my students who have been teaching mixed reality technologies, VR, we no longer have access to headsets, right? And so social VR, you can actually access without a headset, with a screen. So I'm trying to build this now, a simplified version in social VR, so that people, even people without headsets, can experience some sense of the 360 aspect of it. Any other questions? I'm almost done. One more slide I want to show. Well, two more. This is just information on Telematic Gallery and the show. And also, I just want to publicly thank all the people who collaborated and worked with me on this project. The original music by Arluc Dubois, who also is a professor and co-director of my program at NYU, and he shows at Bitforms Gallery. Telematic Gallery, Clark Buckner, who is the director and founder of the gallery, and of course, all of my studio assistants and designers and developers, Janine Kelly, Indira, Nath, Calvin, Tess, and Zoe. I think it's always important to thank, because so many new media projects are not just one sole person producing them. There's a team, and collaboration is always important and necessary. And finally, I'm going to show this video. This is something I just produced upon returning from San Francisco. I was invited to be in this online show with more than 80 online artists. It's curated by Faith Holland, Wade Wallerstein, and Lorna Mills, and it's called Well Now What the Fuck. And so 80 artists participated on this online exhibition. A lot of these artists are net artists and already have practices online. And so I produced this work called It Was All a Dream That Wasn't a Dream. And so basically all these objects that I've carefully cataloged in my cabinet of curiosities, something new happens to them as a way of kind of responding to this particular unprecedented event that we as a world are facing. So you can watch this for a minute. The various animals you see there, the bison, the camel, the great ape, also have texture maps of AI. So I've been training the AI on models of endangered species, and then I wrap the various models in the images that the AI has generated. And I think on some level, you know, one other thing I'm thinking about is value. And so all of these objects, you know, were things that I found online and kind of gave this patina, you know, this copper patina, so they have this sense of luxury maybe, but also calling into question the worth of all of these things, right? And thinking about consumer culture, and particularly now as we face this crisis and we want to return to normalcy. Things weren't so normal before, were they? And so maybe asking questions now about how we can envision moving forward when we do heal as a world. You know, thinking about like ways that we can make a more positive world going forward. So finally, if you'd like to contact me, I'm Carla Gannis everywhere. So that's my website, my email. And on my Instagram, you can follow both me and Carla Gann. She is c.a.r.l.a. And thank you so much, everyone. And I will stop sharing my screen now.
That was amazing, Carla. Thank you so much.
Carla. Thank you. That, yeah.
I think there's just one question from Jenny Mack, who is asking about ArtSpace VR and wondering if it's a viable platform for live immersive art experience.
Good question. Yes, I've been playing around with ArtSpace. I've been playing with Mozilla Hubs as well. And ArtSpace also is a viable platform. It has a little bit of a different aesthetic than VRChat. The one thing about both VRChat and ArtSpace that is a little bit problematic right now, though, is it isn't cross-platform. It's generally for a PC environment. So I also have been working with Mozilla Hubs, which is cross-platform, which is pretty good. And then there was one more, One2VR, which is an educational tool that you can use for social VR experiences. You don't have to have a headset for that as well, and that is cross-platform. So I've been user testing a lot of different environments right now, just in terms of, you know, as an educator, and how I can provide experiences in class beyond just Zoom for my students.
So shall I go ahead with my questions to you, Carla, as you are on the floor?
Definitely.
Sure.
Go ahead, Carla. Yeah. Carla.
Okay.
Carla.
It's my pleasure now to shoot a few questions at Carla. Thank you so much for that presentation. I felt like I've been to a gallery. I've been out of my house, which just hasn't happened for 3 weeks, so thank you. I see you've got, in your CV, Carla G, you've got a BFA and an MFA in painting. When and how did you get into using technology in your practice?
Okay, Carla R. Some of you might have noticed that Carla Gannis is here today, and she has been waiting quietly, and she actually wants to share something with all of you right now first. So Carla R., I will answer that question in just one moment, but let me give Carla Gann the stage for a second. So I'm going to mute myself and get her.
I'm going to unmute Carla Gann. 1 second. She's unmuted.
Go.
Carla R., before you and Carla G start talking, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm C.A.N. or you can call me cross-platform avatar for recursive life action generative adversarial network for short. Ha ha ha. Seriously, you can call me Carla Gann. Carla G., my human avatar, will be doing the rest of the talking today, as I'm still getting the hang of my voice, but I just want to let you all know, she could not do what she does without me. Nice to meet you all and stay safe.
That was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Carla Gann.
Okay, I'm back. And let me make sure I mute Carla over here. Okay, she's muted, good. So we don't interrupt each other. She's always trying to talk over me. Go figure. Okay, so she got her say in, and now I'm going to take back over and answer your question, Carla. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm okay. So a BFA and MFA in painting, yes. And I studied oil painting. I first started out as a figurative painter and then moved into abstraction, but I didn't even call myself an artist. I called myself a painter. But I also came from a very small town in the southern part of the United States, and I wasn't exposed to a lot of contemporary art. And upon graduating from grad school, I went straight from undergrad to grad. I moved to New York City. And that's when I was exposed through a series of internships and studio assisting opportunities to artists working with new technologies. And it blew me away. And as you can tell by my presentation, I am also someone who adores history, particularly art history. And I think that when we imagine the future, we also need to be reflective of the past and learn from our past and understand how there's a fabric of time and there's relationships between historic works, future speculation, and our time right now. However, upon being introduced to artists working with, video, not oil paints, and the internet, and actually my first job, thanks to my dad, I also have to give credit to my dad, and I'll wrap this up in a second, but my dad, when I was a kid, and this is in the late 80s, early 90s, he was already working with computer technologies in a small town, and everybody thought he was a little weird. And he took me to SIGGRAPH and these festivals, and I was like, oh no, I'm a serious, real artist. And so I made my paintings. And so he still laughs at me now, because in the late 90s, I realized, oh no, I want to be a person of my time, like Leonardo da Vinci. I'm sure Leonardo da Vinci would be a digital artist today, right? Because he was someone who experimented with all of the new technologies of his time. And artists have always worked with technologies. Oil paint moving to tubes in the 19th century, for example. And so I really wanted to be an artist of my time, and I wanted to work with the tools. And I think with computer technologies, and Carla Gann represents this, it's a new kind of practice where you're not always, particularly with the emergence of AI, they're not just tools. There's a new kind of collaboration starting to emerge as well. And let's see, I think I probably answered that well enough. Is that
great? Really, thank you so much. It's a terrific answer.
Oh, wait, 1 second. Sorry, Carla R., can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me, but I couldn't hear you. I had my audio turned down on this one. Can you repeat that second question? Sorry about that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's a great, great, great story. Now I saw that it was clear Hieronymus Bosch has influenced your practice. My second question, which other artists have influenced your practice? I could see quite a few in your presentation. Did you want to answer a few more artists or any other influences? Actually, you talked about it. So go ahead.
Oftentimes, particularly with the Selfie Drawing project, which became a gallery installation called The Subject Self-Defined, a lot of my work I am borrowing from or remixing, mashing up, particularly art history references. And a lot of times they're male artists because in the canon, we don't have many women to choose from historically. And there is definitely, I have a love for those works, but also when historically women have been the object, not, you know, been able to be, have their subjecthood and to be the author. It's been something also as an appropriation artist to kind of reclaim my own, you know, kind of agency in remixing some artists from, male artists from the canon. There are many female and female identified artists that are so significant to me. And so I just want to list them quickly. Lynne Hirschman Leeson, new media arts pioneer, an amazing artist, and so important to my practice. Also, Louise Bourgeois, years ago, I got to go twice to her house. She used to have these Sunday salons, and even though she wasn't a new media artist, I just think as a role model for female artists and being in it for the long haul, she's amazing. Also, artists in terms of literary artists, Marge Piercy, who wrote Woman on the Edge of Time in the 70s, an amazing activist, poet, science fiction and speculative fiction writer. She has influenced me greatly, particularly Woman on the Edge of Time in the 70s, where she's talking about the environment. She's imagining different futures where women do have agency and where women don't, where we have destroyed our environment. It's just an amazing book. I highly recommend it. Also, first female science fiction writer, Margaret Cavendish, The Blazing World, 1666. She's fantastic. And then there are a couple of young artists that I want to shout out because they're the people who inspire me to keep asking questions and to keep being fluid in terms of my own practice in a changing environment and changing culture. And so that's Rafia Santana, Lajane McMillan, Faith Holland, and Morsheen Aliyari. So just had to get some of those names in.
Great, fantastic. Which leads me straight on to my next question. Even now, there are very few women artists celebrated by today's contemporary art world in terms of solo shows, gallery representation, art fairs, etc. Why is that? And do you feel it's changing?
So I remain optimistic, and I think a lot has changed since, if we think this year is celebrating for the States, women getting to vote 100 years, which is really not that long of a time. I mean, my grandmother, Pansy May was her name. She was born before women had the right to vote, right? And so in the two generations, it's amazing the opportunities I have that my mother didn't have, and my grandmother, certainly, she only had an 8th grade education. She certainly didn't have those opportunities. So I'm optimistic, but the thing that I find deplorable is that when we look at government, for example, or we look at many major, you know, kind of institutions, it's still predominantly white men. But there are arts institutions and humanities institutions who are really making strides to be more inclusive and really think about gender equity, and also thinking, you know, in terms of how to include people from across the spectrum, you know, in terms of class and race and orientation, gender orientation, and female identified. And so I do think there are some amazing people out there at art institutions, both small and large, who are, you know, doing the work that we need done.
Thank you, thank you, thanks so much. My eye is on the clock. I can see that our hour is going to be up in 5 minutes, so I'll cut.
Oh, really? We went. Oh boy.
So I'll cut my questions a little bit because I really want to answer some of yours. We traded to the audience. We traded our questions, and Carla G's questions were amazing. It caused me a lot of thought. So of my remaining questions, you've got the list. Is there any particular one you want to jump in on? Otherwise, I'll choose one. I'd love to hear how your practice has been impacted by the need to shelter at home And are there any positives to come out of these troubling times? You alluded to it a little bit in your presentation. Would you like to talk about that one?
Yeah, I will talk about that one. In terms, so I have many practices. You know, I have my art practice, I have my teaching practice as well. I have my keeping up with my cat's Instagram practice. Bashi is my cat's name. But seriously, so what's kind of fascinating, I'm an extroverted introvert, so I spend a lot of time alone at home, and I'm very, very active on social media, but I don't go out a lot. And particularly the past year, because I've been working on this solo show. So when this happened, I was actually looking forward to taking a little time off and, you know, traveling or being outside or something, but no, I'm just back to the normal for me, which is, you know, staying at my computer. And so that hasn't impacted me so much because I have this digital arts practice and I spend a lot of time on the computer anyway. Of course, I, like all of you, I'm sure, you know, you do get stir crazy, but that hasn't been as big an impact on me as on my teaching practice, because there's something about teaching and being face-to-face in a physical, you know, space with students that's very different than this kind of communication. And so that's had, you know, and it's required a lot of pivoting. For example, as I mentioned before, working with virtual reality technologies where you need hardware and those kind of things, you know, really having to reconsider student projects. And it's been good though, because, and I think this is a good outcome for all of us, but particularly in regards to this class, is we're really getting back down to the conceptual nature of virtual reality, which, where does that begin? It begins in our dreams, right? It begins with philosophers like Plato, questioning, you know, like the cave and what is reality in the first place. And so now the students are really digging in conceptually, because they don't even have, you know, the tools to kind of create these experiences. And in a way, I think that'll strengthen some of their projects down the road, and my own projects, because I'm spending some more time now reflecting on the meaning of this. Because I think an important question with technology is, especially today when we have so many whiz-bang things, is to ask yourself, yeah, it can exist, but should it exist, right? And how does it add meaning to the world?
Yeah, that's a really good answer. Great, great.
Carla, we still have a question from Denise, who is asking, will Carla Gann become an artist as well?
That's a good question, although how are we doing with time? Thank you so much for this question, because I just want to check on time. I didn't realize we'd gone so far into this. Well, okay, I'll address that question, and then I hope I have time to ask you one question, Carla R., because I've got some good ones for you.
You do.
So yes, that's a great question. And actually, last summer, I attended the Symposium on Humor and Absurdity in Art in Lithuania. It was so much fun. And I staged a whole online poll that compared myself to Carla Gann. And so I did about 10 different questions, polling questions, that I posted on all my social media platforms with images of Carla Gann doing something and Carla Gannis, me doing something. So something's photographic and something that is, you know, simulated. And what's really interesting is over time, people really started to empathize more with Carla Gann. And particularly when I started having her make art, because her last name is G.A.N, Generative Adversarial Network, which is, you know, one algorithm for, you know, producing AI work. And so when she started producing work, I was polling people and I was like, who is the artist of it? Is it me or is it her? And a large percentage of people were actually attributing it to her. Now, of course, that made me feel a little uneasy, but I think it's something that we all have to really think about. I'm pay attention a lot to tech ethics, and particularly tech ethics in relationship to AI, and really thinking about these emerging intelligences. Right now, we're nowhere close to general artificial intelligence where they have consciousness, but there may be the day that that happens. And have we kind of built a future where there is collaboration possible? So I'm very curious if she could be an artist too. Anything else?
No,
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, exactly. If you want to go ahead and ask your questions to Carla R.
Okay. Oh, wait, let me find my right questions for you, Carla. All right, it's more. Let's see. Carla, do you have a preference?
Well, I love the one. I never in the world thought of the question number 3. You asked me, Well, you do have it. You can read it if you want.
I have it. Okay, so I'll read you that one. So through the Lumen Prize, you work with artists from around the world. So here's an ethnographic question. Although the internet globally connects us in a historically unprecedented way, I'm wondering if you find artists approaching new media art in distinct ways based on their cultural identities.
It's such, yeah, it's such a good, oh, and if so, can you describe, sorry, cut you off.
Yeah, and describe different approaches in their storytelling technique or presentation. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this question. It shows you're wearing your professor's hat, and I love it. And no one's ever asked us this question. And of course, we've been global since the beginning. And yes, the answer is unqualified yes. And I had to sit and think about it, because of course I've gotten to know these artists from these different countries and work with them. And there are one or two words that can talk about colorations and the way they approach storytelling. So I'm going to try and go through it and see how we can get this done and give you some thought. First of all, the UK. This is the land of Shakespeare and the Clash. It comes out in art so big time. This historical context, this lyrical, poetic context comes out in so much British art, British new media and digital art. But yet the clash is always there. There's always an edgy, push the boundaries, try something new, bash it on the head, experiment with it. So I have to say, we've had, because we're based in the UK, we do have a large proportion every year from the UK, and that even the British obsession with gardening, it all comes into new media art, and I love that. American artists, now I'm going to get a little less detailed, but I think these are still, I checked these with the other people I work with, and we all agree. American artists are wonderful collaborators. They're joiners, and they use their experimentation in a collective way, which is really fabulous. And you backed me up in your presentation by noting everyone who was involved. I mean, that is a real good American thing. When I get a notice from another artist from another country you forgot to mention, it's because they forgot to mention. In the American entries, they list them. And it's a wonderful sense of collaboration in the art world in America. So that I felt was strong. The Latin American artists, every single one, are wild on color. Big, vivid, violent color. And I think it goes with the emotions of Latin America. I haven't spent a lot of time there, but it has a palpable passion. That's how I would talk about Latin American art. The Japanese are meticulous, detail-oriented, driven, and bold. So the fact that Borderless grew up in Tokyo is not a surprise. And the fact that that museum that they started with Team Lab had more visitors than the Van Gogh Museum is not surprising to me, because when they get onto something, it's mega. Italians are happy to mix medium, old and new, and the same in Greece. The Dutch and the French, the Dutch and the Swiss, I feel, are leading the way on highlighting climate change and social change in art. Very, very politically minded, environmentally minded. The French are excellent at harnessing the skill sets of graphic design. So you get creative agencies who moonlight in art at night from France, which is so cool. And Eastern European, which is my last part of the world. Oh, I'm gonna do China too. No, and Canada. So Eastern Europe, the plight of the underclass really matters to the Eastern European artists, by and large. We get a lot of really beautiful VR work from Eastern Europe, and it often has this underclass element of showing the other side of the story. China is referenced to classical motifs and imagery, mathematics, and very futuristic, dreamy, lots of dreams in Chinese work. And the last one, Canada, we seem to get a lot of just good narrative storytelling from Canada, where the story kind of follows a line. And I don't know if that goes back to the Wild West of Canada and the way it was founded, but I can depend on a Canadian artist coming in with something quite narrative and quite just stable, stable in a traditional old-fashioned sense of storytelling, rather than pushing out boundaries too far and too fast. So anyway, I had a lot of fun with that. So thank you for asking it. Well, that question would be an amazing topic.
Yeah. For an entire talk altogether. Well, we can, we'll make note of it.
So do we have time for any more questions? Questions for Carla, or are we, how are you doing?
I think, Carla, if you want to ask perhaps another question to Carla R, then we can, you know, open up to the audience.
Okay. So a few of my questions for you, Carla, I think you answered, Carla R, I think you answered in your presentation, you know, in terms of your, you know, background in journalism and then pivoting to digital arts. But maybe talking about, because it's something, you know, that we're all dealing with right now, with COVID-19 wreaking havoc on every manner of life now. And it's something I talked about. Many people want to return to life as it was before. And humanitarians, activists, journalists are all asking us to reconsider what returning to normalcy after this crisis means. In other words, the normal from a few months ago was anything but, considering the perils of climate change, the rise of authoritarian governments, the depletion of natural resources, and that list goes on, as we know. So Carla R., how do you think contemporary art can shine a light on our imagining new, less destructive paths forward? And in other words, can our contemporary art help to affect change in the world?
Wonderful question. And of course, I would not be sitting here if I didn't think the answer to the last one was yes. Of course it can, it has to. Art is vital in this environment. It's incredibly vital. And we were all, as you said in your presentation, this thinking was already in our thoughts well before this crisis hit. Do we need all these objects? Do we need all these things? Do we as artists need to be traveling to as many places as we travel? And as we learn to communicate and enjoy each other's company this way, can this help us cut down a bit on travel? And would that help our environment? I don't know about you, but where I live in the last 2 weeks, you can now pretty much touch the stars. There's so little pollution. They're so bright. And insects and butterflies, and it might not be warm enough where you are, but our spring is coming in and it's a spring like we've never seen. So the impact of this crisis is that it is allowing our environment to heal a little bit. And I think we need to, the word I'm using is to reset our thinking. And I think we need to be thinking, one of the things we're working on at Lumen, and in fact, I hope to continue talking with you about, is a holographic telepresence technology that can actually use a little bit of kit in your home and put you into what is a flat screen 2D environment on the viewer's desktop, something like that. So you can do what you've just done, chat to them through a kind of hologram of Carla, maybe another Carla, a further Carla. So we're busy working on that. We're also working with venues who can't be open on how they can have community engaged art projects, not multiplayer games, but multiplayer art, bringing art to people who are in their homes with our artists. And I think this is so exciting. We would never have thought about it. It would have never crossed anybody's mind. It was always go to the event and, you know, have a great big group of physical people who have traveled, flown, visited. And in this way, can we cut down on our impact? Wouldn't that be a fantastic result of this horrible, horrible crisis, that we in fact lighten up our tread on the earth? And I think artists have a huge role for this. So thank you for asking that question.
Thank you for answering so eloquently. And yes.
Thank you both. Really great questions, great answers, very insightful and instructive, to be honest, and a lot of things that I think certainly I believe into as well, and I'm sure the audience. I just want to go back to Funny as well, who has the power to open up to the audience if.
Yeah, I mean, if someone wants to ask a question directly, I mean, you can now unmute yourself and ask the question directly without me rephrasing your question. So yeah, if there's anybody else who wants to ask anything.
We have any brave guests in the audience?
This is Elena. I just wanted to thank both of you for this wonderful conversation and such a great start to our series. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you so much. I'm replying to some people on the chat right now.
That's great.
Yeah.
This is a great platform. I have to run, but I'm so glad I joined. I hope there's more of these in the future. It's sort of a perfect size group where it's not a huge conference. It's more intimate, so you really get to ask questions and see what people are up to. So I appreciate you putting it together. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's good for us as well. You know, it's we need this in these times, and I think this community is even more important than ever. So,
I put in the chat box, there's a woman who we had come here to do a talk, Julie Lemoyne, and she's at Smart Lab in Ireland, working on these convening of virtual spaces to working with the whole spectrum, from artistic experiences all the way to business meetings to mindfulness engagements. And it would be interesting to tinker with, you know, Zoom is great, but since CADAF is CADAF, it would be interesting if you might experiment with either Altspace VR or, you know, some of these other things as you move forward with convening people around these topics, because it seems very appropriate. Yeah,
I think the experimentation is I mean, this is kind of the right time to experiment, and I think the idea was just to start something simple, but I agree there's way more things we can do on integrating and you know, making these things interactive, and but still make them available, because there's some experiment with technology which is like very much more immersive, but if you limit that to people with a VR set, it's still very
exactly.
You know, sad excluding the other people. So, but absolutely, and again, it's a community event. So if you have ideas and like really, please reach out. We'll be happy to look into it.
Oh, now I'm late you made me late for my meeting because I'm so interested in
Sorry.
Appreciate it.
Sorry.
Thanks,
well,
everybody.
Giulia, do you want to conclude?
Yes, well, thank you again from me to both, the three Carlas. Actually, great to meet Carla again. Hope to meet her again at some point as well. And thanks for the audience. Thanks for all your sort of insights and your messages as well. It's been great, and sort of, you know, stay tuned for the next happy hours sort of coming up. So hope to see you again participating with us.
Thank you so much for
Thank you, and we will host them regularly, definitely. So with different actors and different special guests. I mean, not as special as Carla Gannis, but we'll definitely continue that too. And we announced today for CADAF online that we were supposed to host CADAF Paris in June, which you know, as you all know, it's physical events are happening, but we did not want to cancel, so we are developing a new way to do these fairs online. We just announced it. Follow if you're interested in more details. It's already on the website, and yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to do something, and again, very happy to be able to have the opportunity to not cancel and support the community with a good event, and bringing it online. And yeah, and any idea you have or participation, or if you want to participate to it, let us know, and but we'll definitely give more details in the coming weeks. But thank you, Giulia, for moderating this great talk, and yeah, that's it for us. Thank you so much, and stay safe, and see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.